The Serengeti stretched out like a golden blanket under the vast African sky. The sun was a hot, bright coin, warming the earth and everything that lived upon it. Tall acacia trees stood like lonely sentinels, their flat tops providing small patches of shade for the animals that gathered beneath them. The air was thick with the scent of dry grass and distant rain that never seemed to arrive. In this wide, open space, herds of animals moved like slow-flowing rivers. Wildebeest grunted, gazelles leaped with delicate grace, and lions watched from rocky outcrops, their eyes sharp and knowing. This was a land of ancient rhythms, where life and survival were part of the same breath, a place of immense beauty and ever-present danger. Among the herds of zebras there was a familiar and comforting pattern. Their stripes were a dazzling display of black and white, a moving tapestry that confused the eyes of predators. Each zebra wore its stripes like a uniform, a symbol of belonging to the great, thundering family that roamed the plains together. But there was one zebra whose pattern was different. His name was Zane, while the others had straight, orderly lines that ran down their bodies like neat fences. Zane's stripes were a wonderful, chaotic mess. They swirled and curved, zigzagged and looped. Some stripes were thick like riverbeds, while others were as thin as a blade of grass. They did not follow any rules. They danced. Zane's stripes were a map of something wild and unknown. On his left flank, a bold stripe curled into a perfect spiral, like a fossil shell found by the sea. Near his shoulder, another stripe branched out like a lightning bolt striking the earth, creating a starburst of smaller lines that scattered across his coat. His pattern was not just different, it was a story written in black and white, a language that no one else in the herd could read or understand. While the other zebras looked like copies of one another, Zane was a unique masterpiece. His coat was a testament to the idea that not everything in the world had to be straight and predictable. It was beautiful, but it was a beauty that made him stand apart from everyone else. He often stood at the edge of the herd, watching the others graze peacefully. He would trace the lines on his own legs with his nose, wondering why he was made this way. Was it a mistake? A strange joke played by the sky and the earth? The sun would catch his coat, and for a moment, the swirling patterns seemed to shimmer with a light all their own. He felt a deep connection to his stripes, a quiet pride that he kept hidden in his heart. He believed they were not an error, but a sign, a promise of something more. He dreamed that one day, his different pattern would have a purpose, a grand meaning that would finally be revealed to him and to the world. The other zebras did not see the beauty in Zane's stripes. To them, his pattern was simply wrong. It was a disruption to the perfect collective camouflage of the herd. The elders would shake their heads slowly, their gazes filled with disapproval. A zebra's stripes should be straight and true, they would murmur, loud enough for Zane to hear. They are our protection, our identity. His stripes are a weakness. The young foals, learning the ways of the herd, would stare and point their noses at him. They would whisper behind their mother's legs, their words carried on the wind like sharp little stones. "Look at the zebra with the crooked stripes," they would say, their voices a mixture of curiosity and fear. Zane carried their judgment like a heavy saddle on his back. He tried to fit in, to stand in the middle of the herd where his unusual coat might be less noticeable. But it was no use. The other zebras would subtly shift away from him, creating a small, empty circle around him wherever he went. He was one of them, yet he was utterly alone. He ate his grass at a distance and drank from the watering hole only after the others had finished. The loneliness was a constant ache in his chest, a quiet sorrow that followed him from sunrise to sunset. He longed for the simple comfort of belonging, for the warmth of another zebra standing close by without flinching. Despite the herd's rejection, a stubborn belief grew inside Zane's heart. He refused to believe his stripes were a mistake. He felt they were a part of him, a map of his soul. Late at night, when the moon cast a silver glow over the plains, he would look at his reflection in a still pool of water. He saw the swirls and zigzags, and he felt a sense of wonder. These were not just markings, they were a secret language. He was sure of it. This conviction was his only companion, a quiet friend that whispered encouragement when the loneliness became too much to bear. He held on to the hope that his stripes meant something important, something extraordinary. He spent his days exploring the outer edges of the herd's territory, finding comfort in his solitude. He learned the names of the birds that sang in the acacia trees and watched the dung beetles roll their precious cargo with tireless determination. He became a keen observer of the world around him, noticing details that the other zebras missed in their tightly packed group. He saw how the wind bent the tall grasses into swirling patterns, just like the stripes on his back. He noticed how the rivers carved winding paths through the earth, never in a straight line. The world, he realized, was full of beautiful, crooked things. This thought gave him strength and made him believe more than ever that he was not wrong, just different. The days grew hotter, and the sun beat down on the Serengeti with a relentless fury. The once lush grasses turned brittle and yellow, crumbling to dust under the zebra's hooves. The watering holes shrank, their edges cracking like old pottery, until they were nothing but muddy puddles. A great thirst settled over the land, and the herd grew weak. The foals whimpered with hunger, and the elders looked to the sky with worried eyes, but no clouds appeared. The air was still and heavy, filled with the dust of a land that was slowly dying. Desperation began to creep into the herd, a quiet panic that was more dangerous than any predator. As the drought tightened its grip, the elders gathered in a circle, their voices low and raspy. They began to speak of an old story, a legend passed down through many generations. It was the tale of the hidden oasis, a secret paradise where the water was always cool and clear, and the grass was eternally green. The legend said that the oasis was protected by magic, invisible to all except one. The path to this sacred place was not marked on the ground, but was hidden in the stripes of a special zebra. This chosen one would carry the map on their very own coat, a guide that only they could understand and follow to save their herd. Zane listened from the edge of the group, his heart thumping in his chest. A map hidden in the stripes of a special zebra. The words echoed in his mind, stirring something deep within him. He looked down at his own swirling, chaotic pattern. Could it be? Could his crooked lines be the very map the elders spoke of? The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. All his life he had been told his stripes were a flaw, a mistake. Now the legend suggested they might be a gift, a sacred trust. He felt a surge of purpose, a powerful feeling that pushed aside his fear and loneliness. That night, Zane made a decision. The herd was fading, and hope was a flickering candle in a strong wind. He could not stand by and watch them suffer, even if they had never accepted him. He would go alone. He would follow the map he believed was written on his skin. As the rest of the herd slept, their breaths shallow and troubled, Zane slipped away into the moonlit darkness. He did not know what dangers he would face, or if the legend was even true. But for the first time in his life, he was not running from his differences. He was running toward them, trusting that they would lead him home. Zane travelled under the vast, star-dusted sky, the silence of the savannah his only companion. The journey was harder than he had ever imagined. The land was dry and unforgiving, and predators lurked in the long shadows. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, he found himself cornered by a lioness. She was lean and hungry, her golden eyes fixed on him. Panic seized him, but as he turned to flee, he ran past a thicket of tangled, thorny bushes. The swirling stripes on his coat blended perfectly with the twisted branches and the confusing patterns of light and shadow. The lioness leapt, but her eyes were deceived. She saw only the bush and missed him completely. He continued his journey, his confidence growing with every step. He learned to trust the patterns on his coat as his guide. When he came to a wide, dry riverbed with many possible paths, he felt lost. He looked down at his right leg, where a stripe forked into two distinct paths. He gazed ahead and saw that the riverbed also split in two. One path was rocky and difficult, while the other seemed smoother. His stripe pointed him toward the rocky path, He hesitated for a moment, but then he remembered his purpose and followed the sign. The rocky path was hard on his hooves, but it led him safely around a hidden patch of quicksand that would have surely trapped him. His stripes became his compass and his shield. A zigzag pattern on his back matched the shape of a distant mountain range, telling him which direction to go. A small circular stripe on his shoulder looked exactly like a unique rock formation he had been told to find. It was as if the land itself was speaking to him through the language of his coat. He was no longer just a zebra with crooked stripes. He was a navigator, an explorer reading a living map. The loneliness he had felt in the herd was replaced by a deep connection to the world around him. He was not an outcast here. He was part of the land's great secret story. Days turned into a week, and Zane grew weary but remained determined. He learned to find water hidden in the hollows of old trees and to eat tough, thorny plants that other animals ignored. His journey was not just across the land, but also within himself. With each challenge he overcame, he shed the skin of the lonely, insecure zebra he had once been. He was becoming someone new, someone forged in the heat of the sun and the dust of the plains. He was Zane the adventurer, the map reader, the keeper of a secret promise. He knew he was getting closer to his destination, guided by the incredible, beautiful, and powerful stripes that made him who he was. After many days of travel, Zane arrived at a place that felt different from the rest of the Serengeti. He entered a quiet canyon where ancient baobab trees reached for the sky like gnarled fingers. The air was cooler here, and a strange, magical energy hummed all around him. In the center of the canyon stood a zebra unlike any he had ever seen. She was old, her coat the color of moonlight, and her stripes were not black, but shimmering silver. They seemed to move and flow like liquid starlight. This was the Great Weaver, the mythical guardian of the oasis, a figure from the oldest legends of his herd. She looked at Zane with eyes that held the wisdom of ages. "You have come far, little one," the Great Weaver said, her voice like the rustling of leaves. "You have followed the map you were born with." Zane bowed his head respectfully, feeling a sense of awe. "I thought the map was a legend," he confessed. "I thought my stripes were just a mistake." The Great Weaver smiled gently, a knowing and kind expression on her ancient face. "There are no mistakes in the great tapestry of life, Zane," she explained. "There are only different patterns. The legend does not create the hero. The hero's courage creates the legend. The map was not in your stripes until you chose to believe in it." She told him that his stripes were not a predetermined path, but a reflection of his own spirit. His courage to be different, to walk his own path when others turned away, was what gave his stripes their power. "Many zebras are born with unique patterns," she continued, her silver stripes shimmering. "But most spend their lives trying to hide them, to blend in. They erase their own maps out of fear. You did not. You embraced what made you special, and in doing so, you found your way. Your journey was not about following a map. It was about creating one with every brave step you took." Zane listened, and her words filled him with a profound sense of peace. He finally understood. His stripes were not a curse or a random accident. They were a symbol of his own inner strength. He was not special because of his stripes. His stripes were special because of him. The Great Weaver gestured with her head toward a crack in the canyon wall, hidden behind a curtain of vines. "The hidden oasis awaits," she said. "You have earned the right to enter. Remember, the greatest strength is not in being the same as everyone else, but in having the courage to be yourself." With a final, grateful nod, Zane walked toward the vines, ready to complete his quest. Pushing through the thick curtain of vines, Zane stepped into a world of breathtaking beauty. The air was cool and moist, filled with the sweet scent of flowers he had never seen before. A crystal-clear spring bubbled up from the ground, feeding a deep, tranquil pool of water that shimmered like a jewel. Lush green grass grew everywhere, soft and inviting under his tired hooves. This was the hidden oasis, a paradise kept safe from the drought-stricken world outside. He drank deeply from the cool water, feeling life and strength flow back into his weary body. The legend was true. Hope was real. But Zayn did not linger. He knew his herd was suffering, and he had to bring this life-giving water back to them. He remembered a story the elders told of how ancient rivers could be reawakened. Following an instinct guided by his newfound confidence, he used his strong hooves to kick at the rocks near the spring. He dislodged a large boulder, and with a great rumble, the water found a new channel, an old, dry riverbed that led out of the canyon and back toward the plains. A stream of fresh, clear water began its journey, a silver ribbon of hope flowing out into the thirsty land. Zayn followed it, his heart light with purpose. When he returned to the herd, leading the stream of water behind him, the other zebras stared in disbelief. They saw the water, and then they saw him, the outcast, the zebra with the crooked stripes. They watched as he guided the stream to their dry watering hole, filling it with life again. There were no more whispers, no more looks of disapproval. There was only silent, grateful awe. The elders approached him, their heads bowed. "You saved us," one said, his voice filled with respect. "Your stripes, they are not a weakness. They are a sign of your strength and your courage." Zayn had not just brought back water, he had brought back a new understanding. From that day on, Zayn was no longer an outcast, he was a hero, but more importantly, he was himself. He wore his swirling, zigzagging stripes with pride, knowing that they represented his unique journey and the strength he had found within. He did not need the herd's approval anymore, though he was glad to have it. He had learned that true belonging comes from accepting yourself. He remained a part of the herd, but he also continued to explore, to seek new adventures on the vast plains of the Serengeti, always following the extraordinary and beautiful map of his own heart.